Thanks so much for joining me. I'm super excited to learn more about remote. Read a lot about you guys, love some of the trends that you're doing. We're a remote first organization ourselves. And then I'd actually also like to get into this, API that you guys are launching with a couple of different interesting partners. But do you first mind just sort of giving us like the 2-second background on yourself, the business, why you started this?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Phil. So background on myself, I originally come from neuroscience. I ended up in the team at GitLab when just after I just founded I led product there. GitLab being fully distributed, fully remote company. And there I saw like remote work is clearly going to be the future. It's so obviously a better way to run a business. The one thing we struggled with was we wanted to hire someone in a country we didn't have an entity. How do we do that? And we found out that there was no good way. There were ways, they were all painful and expensive and error prone. And so I eventually, after 5 years, left GitLab specifically to solve that problem in the hope that more companies would start working remotely. And that's exactly what happened. So I founded Remote together with Marcel, my best friend. And we today have a business where we help thousands of customers do exactly that, which is payroll, benefits, and anything else that comes with hiring people in any country in the world.
I love it. I also believe the world is moving in a remote way. And I also realize that the pains of an individual employer trying to employ somebody in a given geography is insanely hard. And I think that
Yeah.
everybody kind of, and I'm in the US, I have a US centric point of view, but if you're in the US, it's even hard to pay people in different cities and different states. And so there are these wonderful payroll companies that have come along and said, hey, if you're employing somebody in Philadelphia, we're going to do the paperwork, make sure you pay the taxes, make sure you're covered from an insurance perspective. And you guys are basically doing the same thing, except for across lots of different countries. And you're also doing the painful and expensive work of setting up a legal entity in each of these geographies so that there's sort of an employer of record, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken.
Yeah. So in every country that we operate, we own our own entity. We run our own operations. We do everything ourselves. So we build a full stack in every country in the world.
That's amazing. And so I guess your main kind of competition set is somebody doing it themselves, which is insane, as well as some of these more legacy employer records. Is that
Yeah.
an accurate kind of scope?
Yeah. Essentially, what we saw is that there's three different things that might happen. One, you do it yourself, indeed. So you set up everything yourself locally. Two, is you work with some sort of local player that does this, and they tend to not really be ready and for like companies that move fast. And then lastly, there's these traditional companies, employer of record kind of companies that do this, and they tend to rely on those same local players. So they basically abstract those away, and they build this global network where of having all those local players. And the downside is it's basically you get the worst of all the worlds because it's expensive and slow, and there's someone else that takes money in there. And so yeah, we do everything ourselves. It means that we have to suffer a lot to build all of this up. But the upside is that long term, and immediately for our customers, of course, there's the benefit. There's a direct line here. So remote can directly run payroll. We are the actual employer of record locally if necessary. Yeah.
Awesome. So you guys own the stack, and I can come to you if I'm employing a contractor, a full-time employee. I can do it if I'm a four-person startup or
Yep.
a Fortune 500. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, independent of like legal relationship someone has with you, we can help out in virtually any country in the world. Today, not every country. The goal is to be in every country in the world by the end of next year or so. So there's going to be a few outliers there, but yeah, for any of those situations, we can help out.
Makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge Olympic fan, and it always amazes me how many countries there are in the world. I'm a big wrestling fan, and there's a wrestler from San Marino who I think is the first like Olympian from San Marino, and it's basically a town in Italy, you know.
Yeah.
So if you guys cover even the San Marinos, I'm going to be super super impressed.
Yeah,
Um,
it's interesting. Like we're starting to get into some countries and territories that are very hard to operate in. It has no relationship to the amount of people that live there. It has no relationship to the location on the planet. Some countries just decide to be incredibly bureaucratic to operate in. We're starting to see that.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting. I think it's imperative for these local governments as the world switches more to remote to be a more easy place to hire people from global organizations. I look at some places in the US and it scares me how many hoops you need to jump
Yeah.
through to hire somebody. And we hire globally, and sometimes we've got a candidate in Boston versus a candidate in Panama City, and there's lots of different factors there, but a lot of it is just the bureaucracy and payroll. Honestly, like it becomes sort of a strategic advantage for, just like some companies are tax havens, some companies make it really easy to build technology companies like San Francisco, no non-competes, et cetera.
Yeah.
And I think some countries kind of get this remote work thing, or maybe they're just sort of positioned in the right way for other reasons.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what they're saying.
Yeah. So we got in touch because you guys have had, I think now, a series of announcements, pretty interesting, where you're essentially taking your stack and you're allowing other HR tech to integrate your benefits through an API. Do you mind talking a little bit more about what's going on there, who your initial partners are, and what it means for the broader HR ecosystem?
Yeah. So at Remote, our mission is to create opportunities for anybody anywhere, and not just opportunities, but really give them the capabilities and access to make more money. And so to be able to do that, we want to reach as many companies that then can employ those people as possible. And a lot of companies today are using platforms like our first partner here, Rippling, and are very happy with that. And we don't want to create a situation in which they are forced to either move everything over to remote immediately, because for a very large part, they might not want to. Maybe the majority of their workforce is already in the United States where Rippling is active, or a situation in which they have to maintain two different platforms to manage their people. I have some people in Rippling, I have some people in remote. And so what we did is we built an API that gives you access to our services without having to leave your platform of choice. And so that means that pretty soon, Rippling customers, they will be able to get all the benefits of what we do. So I have an amazing person, Jane, in Portugal, and I want to employ her. How do I do that? Well, you will be able to do that just through Rippling itself in the same experience that you've always done that. And it will be powered by us and through our API. And so this is exactly the idea that we had when we built this out. And that is exactly what is going to happen. So we're very, very excited about it. And of course, very excited to partner with Rippling on this.
I love it. It makes a lot of sense from Rippling's perspective. You guys have figured out a really hard problem that you're still working on, right? And you're making better and better. And they figured out a whole different set of complementary problems. And it's a wonderful partnership for your two businesses as well as the end customers. Are there any companies, and this is sort of like the business nerd in me, that you look to with this strategy that are analogous that you can learn from? I guess there's certain, maybe in the HR tech space on the background check side, that you're like, hey, this is sort of like the playbook that we're using to go to market in this way?
For go-to-market, not as much. I think just like any other startup founder, I would say the company we look up most to is Stripe, in the sense that they build amazing products built on like infrastructure that they own. It's very foundational. And they make those very accessible to other people to integrate with and to play around with. And that is sort of, I wouldn't say we follow the exact same playbook, but it is very similar to how we think about building products and doing things that are, fundamentally very strong. Like we build products that are built on our own foundations that are significantly harder to build, but then allow us to have, an outside advantage for us and our customers over time.
When you think about the trends happening in remote work, we're in this sort of tumultuous time. What are your predictions for what the world looks like in 5 or 10 years? And I'm sure, having gone through maybe a VC fundraising recently, you've got like some numbers in the back of your head around like what percentage of companies are fully remote, Fortune 500 workforces are fully remote. I'm just kind of curious, like your projections on the future with remote.
Yeah, I think in 5-10 years, especially in 10 years time, we won't be thinking a lot anymore about remote work as a special thing, in a sense that it will be everybody will be able to work remotely unless your job has a specific requirement to be in a particular place at a particular time. And the reason for that is not so much because employers decide to do a particular thing. It's because we as employees now all know that, well, I can do my work from anywhere. And if you, current employer, don't allow me to work remotely and gain that additional freedom, I can go to someone else that will be able to give me that, right? Like it's an immediate advantage over any other employer to say, well, you can just work from home or you can work from wherever you want. And so this is what is going to happen. As long as there's a demand for talent, employers will be pushed to be a great employer, and this is what will happen. So I think we're stepping away from I think we're now in the middle of the big debate. Like the debate is not even anymore about, is remote work a thing? I think the current debate is like, what model works? Is it hybrid? Is it remote this? Is it remote that? I think even that is not going to matter anymore. I think the narrative in the future is going to be, you have work, and some companies might have offices where you can sit, like dedicated spaces where you can work or get together. There will be a few outlier companies that say, well, we all work together in office, and if you like that experience, you can come. But in general, I think most jobs, or at least most knowledge workers, will be working remotely, and that will be the default. The same way, like the way they collaborate was just default to fully online, fully accessible to anybody at any time. And then the requirements for particular hours or particular location, that will be, dependent on the company, but not a standard thing. It will not be that all your friends all go to the office every single day like it was 2 years ago.
Very cool. And I love how Stripe's a great analogy. And I think Stripe on its way to becoming like literally the most valuable company in the world, because their payments is such like a core part of any business. And they've layered on so many interesting things in the sort of payroll arena. You've seen companies like ADP, Paycor, Paylocity, whatever. They've been able to build super interesting businesses by starting with something and building on it. Is there any part of the remote stack that you're the most interested in sort of tackling next, either through partnerships or maybe, de novo products that you guys build yourselves?
I think from a high level, the thing I'm most interested is to make a fundamental difference to the access people have to opportunities and to make money. And I think there's still the case that if you live in the United States or even in Western Europe, you have a very skewed idea of, or unless you ventured much out of that, of how easy it is to both get access to money, but also to financial instruments of any kind of sort, any kind of, type. Just getting access to money is already significantly easier than it is in many other areas in the world. And so I think we have a lot of work to do before we're at the point where we can say, well, we've now achieved our mission you can actually easily make a lot more money independent of where you are in the world, or like significantly improve the life of yourself and your loved ones. And so today we just do payroll and benefits, but for example, we don't help you. And we can help companies with like stock option plans, and we can help you, advise you on like, how do you pay taxes over that as an individual? But we don't really solve that yet. That's an example of something that I think is very interesting to address. Extremely difficult. There's no magical solution for that. Like anything we've looked into is problematic, but I think there's a lot to do there, and much beyond that as well. So
yeah, that's a fairly large vision and interesting. We probably could talk about this for several hours. I feel like maybe we can spend a few hours on crypto, ICOs, like maybe on personal finance, et cetera, how money works, how the system is sort of a weird oligopoly slash really convoluted. But maybe we should leave it here. And I really appreciate your time, and
of course,
congrats on super interesting progress. Really cool platform that we have a extremely high likelihood of becoming customers of, as well as really interesting strategy in partnering with these existing HCM vendors. So thanks a lot for sharing your story, and congratulations and good luck.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks.